September 11th, 2001, 9/11. And all of us that were alive then have a vivid recollection of where we were on that very fateful day. And I just want to tell you the story of my recollection. And I remember I was the Michigan Secretary of State at the time, and Detroit was actually having an election. As you might recall, New York, the city of New York was having their election as well on that day. But Detroit was having their election, and I happened to be downtown Detroit with my chief elections officer, Chris Thomas. And we were going to visit some of the precincts in the city of Detroit because, we wanted to make sure everything was going all right with the election. We'd had a couple of issues, what have you. But anyway, we drove into one precinct. I think it was the Coleman Young Center. The first, early in the morning. And the folks, the election workers were watching their TV. And they said, there's been an aircraft that has flown into one of the World Trade Towers. And of course we all said, oh my God, how terrible is that? But, was anybody hurt? But, it must have been an accident somehow. That's what everybody thought at that time. It must have been an accident. And then I remember us driving to the next precinct. And honestly, I can't remember which one it was, but we walked in there. And now the TV screens were all on behind the election workers, and everybody was looking at this thing. By that time, the second plane had gone into the second tower. And then everybody knew it was not an accident. But we didn't really know what had happened or what was happening. It was mass confusion. And so I remember we called the city of Detroit because, as I say, we had this election going on. People are out walking around, right? They're going to vote. And we weren't quite sure what to do. We called the city of Detroit and said, what are you guys doing? And they said, well, we're closing the Ambassador Bridge and we're closing the Windsor Tunnel. And I remember sitting there thinking, okay, obviously something bad was happening, but still didn't understand the extent of it at that time. And I remember talking to Chris Thomas about this a bit, and you know what we really decided? We said, I don't know exactly what's going on here, but until we are really notified that we need to close everything down, we're going to continue on with our election process. Because whoever did this, these cowards, whoever did this, our democracy, and the foundation of our democracy, of course, is our elections process. And our elections are really what sets us apart from those kinds of societies and those kinds of cultures. And so we continued on with the election that day. And I also remember driving home that night. And, my husband was a former base commander over at Selfridge Air National Guard Base. And so we lived right outside the guard gate, essentially. We lived by the base there. And I remember driving along North River Road and looking at Selfridge. And of course, a couple of our airplanes actually had been scrambled to go respond. And I think to Pennsylvania. I can't remember exactly which one they went to. But that entire base was on full alert. There were planes out on the tarmac, and I just remember thinking, looking over at that base and thinking about the brave men and women that put the uniform on each and every day and what that means to our democracy and to our liberty and to our freedom. And so today on 9/11, we never forget.